Hey, I'm Gadi Schwartz coming to you from Los Angeles, where just like all kinds of places, people are freaking out over this looming TikTok countdown to a possible demise.
Goodbye.
But when will I see you again?
Oh, never, never.
Never?
That January 19th deadline rapidly approaching, and we've got questions. Is the app going to go dark? Did the Biden administration just have a last-second change of heart? Where are people supposed to get their 3-ingredient bagel recipes? Our Savannah Sellers has answers. That story is changing minute by minute, so you're not going to want to miss her update. Plus, the only thing not ending with It Ends With Us is the drama surrounding it. Director and star Justin Baldoni now filing a lawsuit against Hollywood power couple Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. And the billionaire space race has taken a bunch of turns today. Musk and Bezos both broing out over their rocket launches earlier. We're going to show you the spectacular catch and a very fiery end. Those are just some of the stories we are following today. There is so much more to unpack tonight, so let's get going, because this is Stay Tuned Now. TikTok has to be the most ironic name for an app whose whole future is now in the hands of a clock set by the Supreme Court. And that clock might stop, might rewind, might change at any moment from now until the deadline that's supposed to be this Sunday because of a flurry of last-minute stuff that's happening behind the scenes right now in Washington. But for the 170 million people who are either content creators or just passing the day by scrolling while maybe working, right now anything can happen.
TikTok, we just paid the rent right here. How are you going to evict us right here? We don't at least get until the first? Like, we don't at least get until the month over? Like, damn, we just paid y'all. You see the check by the rent. TikTok, what's up?
Here's where things stand right now. The ban in the U.S. was set to start on Sunday if the Chinese-owned social media giant didn't sell to an American company. But tonight, the Biden administration seemed to be basically punting the decision down to the Trump administration. And for his part, Trump seems kind of interested in saving TikTok after a bunch of clout he got during the election, which is a reversal from where he stood on the issue of it being a national security concern in the past, if you remember. So really, what's going to happen next? Here's what President-elect Trump's incoming national security advisor said.
We will put measures in place to keep TikTok from going dark. In the legislation allows for an extension as long as a viable deal is on the table. And then, essentially that buys President Trump time to keep TikTok going.
Let's bring in NBC News Now anchor Savannah Sellers, who is also basically my news sister. And yet, Savannah, you've been on this story nonstop, and I've been trying to text you about it, and you're not responding. So I had to go to your TikTok to find out the latest here, like everybody else. What is going on?
What are you talking about? I sent you way more texts today than I usually send to anyone, and you know that's a fact. I've been very communicative. Okay, Gadi, this is pretty wild because this major reversal from the Biden administration has major implications, because what we've basically been waiting for, right, is what is going to happen Sunday. If this law is upheld, what does that mean exactly? What does a ban look like? What is TikTok going to do? Are they going to have to go dark? They've told me that's a last resort. This matters hugely, because now with the Biden administration specifically saying they are not going to collect on those fines, it basically means Sunday is no longer a concern for the app. Let me explain the thing with the fines, because it's kind of wonky. The way that this law is enforced, kind of the whole underpinning of this, the teeth of this law, is that places like Apple, because they host TikTok, places like Oracle, because they are hosting all the data for TikTok, they are the ones who essentially get in trouble with this law, okay? And it's a big fine. It's $5,000 times 170 million users. We did the math. That equals, well, I didn't do the math. Somebody else did the math because I'm bad at that. But it equals $850 billion, which these companies obviously don't want to pay. And if the Biden administration is saying, I'm not going to enforce it, that lets TikTok off the hook pretty big, because then, of course, the next day we have a new president who has said he plans to save TikTok. A lot of different avenues ahead that then President Trump could take. It remains to be seen exactly what that looks like, but it certainly takes some of the heat off here.
This is so bizarre. Look, it almost feels like if if Biden's not going to enforce it, it feels like you've got parents, or maybe they're fighting, maybe they're divorced, and like the mom is like, well, oh, your dad's not going to enforce that? I'm not going to be the bad guy. I'm always the bad guy. And the dad's like, well, I'm not going to enforce it either. Like, are we all of a sudden friends with China now? Like, what happened to, I don't know, the national security concerns?
So since I speak Gadi, let me translate what you said. That's exactly the question, Gadi. What happened to the national security concern? Because remember, there was overwhelming bipartisan support to ban TikTok in the first place. That was because of whatever lawmakers saw behind closed doors in security briefings that said there was a real concern of two things. Number one, that China could be stealing American user data because, remember, TikTok's parent company ByteDance has these ties to China. Or number two, and maybe more concerningly, is they could be manipulating the content that gets put in front of Americans on this app. There's been no smoking gun, but there was obviously enough concern that it had this bipartisan support. Now, the fact that there is bipartisan support to not ban TikTok, to not have this app that ban go into effect, is really quite stunning, because nothing has changed about that national security concern, which really means that this seems like this is all political.
So behind closed doors, does that mean that the national security concerns aren't there, or does it?
No.
I mean, is there a chance that like this is happening for clout, like just straight up legitimate political clout?
I would like to say, I think yes, right? The national security concern remains. Nothing has changed whatsoever. It's not like the Biden administration got new information that said, hey, actually, we don't have to ban TikTok because we're not worried about China anymore. No, that did not happen. What did happen, though, right, Gadi, is 170 million people who use TikTok know they might not be able to anymore. Millions of them have made a lot of noise this week, including making 2 other Chinese-owned apps go viral in a digital protest, essentially, where they're saying to the government, hey, here's how much I care about TikTok. I want TikTok way more than I care about the Chinese government having my data. Now, obviously, the rationale there certainly can be questioned, but that definitely was of notice to the Biden administration. And on the last day, do you want to be the person who's pulling an app away from 170 million people?
And we are neglecting, I guess, the third parent or the step parent in this weird analogy.
The Supreme Court.
Like, the Supreme Court. Like, the Supreme Court is like, wait, no one's going to listen to me now?
Don't you love how that was? I just did our sibling little ESP thing. Yeah, well, Gadi, you know, another thing that is really significant about this reversal from the Biden administration is it kind of takes some of the importance out of this, or maybe I should put it as like, if I'm TikTok, I think I just kind of let a little breath out. I'm not holding it anymore quite as tightly, because what the worst case scenario for TikTok on the Supreme Court side is that they uphold this law. But now, even if the law is upheld, the Biden administration is saying, we are not going to implement it. And that's your day one concern. And it really cuts the teeth out of that.
Day one, for sure. NBC's Savannah Sellers, you are such a wealth of knowledge on all of this. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. And if TikTok does go under, where does its millions of American devotees go? Well, already there's one alternative app. It's really weird, but it is standing out above the rest. It is a very red app, and coincidentally, yes, it's also Chinese. NBC's Janice Mackey-Frayer has more.
Hey, all my new Chinese friends out there.
They're showing up in online droves.
Hello, Reynolds. Oh my gosh, TikTok refugee here.
TikTok users looking for a new home and finding it here.
This might be better than TikTok.
On Xiaohongshu, or Little Red Book, the English name shortened to Red Note. It's become the most downloaded app in the U.S. Apple Store, with over 700,000 new users in the past week alone.
Ni hao. Did I do it? Did I get it right?
Part Chinese Instagram, part search engine, Xiaohongshu is one of China's most popular platforms.
I'm Becca, and I'm introducing myself as a lifestyle vlogger.
Becca Wong is a lifestyle vlogger.
Okay, I'm introducing you to the New Year's gift box.
She uses her account, Who's Becca, to create product reviews.
It's more elegant compared to Chinese version of TikTok.
Critics argue the law pushing TikTok toward extinction goes against free speech. The Supreme Court will have its say on that.
This morning, I opened up my little red book, and what the hell is going on?
For now, the Americans pivoting east has veteran users of the app leaning in.
You better learn yourself a little bit Chinese.
Memes of a terracotta warrior embracing Lady Liberty, Comments ranging from jokes about spies to offers of help with homework. Just don't forget to pay the cat tax that asks American users to introduce their cats.
I think this is a great moment for like a little bonding to happen.
This unexpected U.S.-China connection creating what some are daring to call a kind of digital diplomacy.
The vast majority of people on the Chinese mainland have never even talked to a foreigner. It really seems like a surreal moment.
Thank you, my Red Note brothers and sisters.
The migration is also, for some Americans, an act of protest, at least for Diego Abane from Pasadena.
I don't know what's going to happen to TikTok.
Who, like others, joined Xiaohongshu after hearing on TikTok about other options.
They're just all joining on this app instead of going to any like meta app like Instagram or like X or things like that, just to not support them and saying that it's not really the app that's the problem.
What sort of comments are you getting?
Literally anything from cat pictures to people just saying nice video.
All the new English language content, though, has censors on overdrive here. According to online job boards, they're hiring reviewers. Sensitive issues, and there are many here, are routinely blocked.
If you don't want to play by the rules, you can never post it out.
Already there's talk on the app that foreign accounts might be limited. The company that owns it has declined to comment.
Americans would literally rather learn Mandarin than use Instagram Reels.
That Chinese state media coverage of TikTok refugees seems positive, signals the government here may not crack down yet. Even the main Communist Party newspaper sounds delighted with the interaction.
People are really seeing this as a historic moment in cultural communications, and they're trying to remember it, that we can be friends.
Not all Chinese users are thrilled with Americans piling into their online community. The honeymoon may not last, but for now, it seems everyone is talking. Janice Mackey-Freyer, NBC News, Beijing.
Maybe we'll be friends. Maybe we'll go to war. What a wild time to be alive. Janice Mackey-Freyer, fascinating stuff. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, firefighters here in California are finally getting a break from strong winds that fuel the deadly wildfires we've been seeing here in Los Angeles. But a new concern is emerging in the aftermath, and that is landslides. Yeah, a home that survived the Palisades fire. That's it right there. It is now in ruins after it was literally split in half by a landslide that was caused by buildup of dirt and debris behind that house. Officials are now warning people to be on the lookout for more.
A warning to all the residents, no matter where you live in LA County, if you have slopes behind your homes, or if you're located on the top of a slope, these slopes have become fragile. The soil that is supporting your home have all become fragile and damaged, if you will, due to the events that we've had.
There's also the matter of thousands of people, tens of thousands of people waiting to see what happened to their homes. They are going to have to wait a week or more to get access to those destroyed neighborhoods again, according to officials. And that's in part because of search and rescue efforts that are still happening right now. At least 27 people we know have been confirmed dead so far, with more than 24 people still missing. And on a more promising note, more than half of the Eaton fire tonight is contained. The Palisades fire is only 22% contained, but it has not gotten any bigger in the last couple of days. NBC's Ellison Barber joins us now from Pasadena. Ellison, how worried should people be about these landslides happening? Those images are crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's so startling to see. It's one of the many layers of issues people in this community, particularly those impacted the most by these fires, are having to deal with. You heard it from that official with the Public Works in L.A. County saying anybody in L.A. County, if you live on a slope or near a slope, you need to be hyper aware. They say the fires, as well as the wind, have really damaged the soil, and that there are now debris flow hazards in these areas, even if it's not raining. So it's really a matter of where do you live in LA County? Is there a slope near your house? Are you on a slope, particularly if you're in those impacted areas and one of the houses that survived? You need to be hyper vigilant of this possibility, regardless of the rain, because they say the weather, the fire, and the winds have just really dried out and damaged the soil here. And so now it's another concern for people, particularly in these impacted communities. It is also one of the many reasons why officials are still saying, look, if you are in those key impacted mandatory evacuation order zones, that's why we're still not letting you come home. This is in addition to the other hazards they've identified in the past of down power lines, debris that's still in the area, and also the possibility, though less now, of hot spots. Gadi.
And Ellison, we've had a housing crisis here in L.A. before this, and now this is so much worse. I know the governor today issued an executive order that's supposed to fast-track temporary housing. How is that going to play out?
Yeah, so we signed that order today, and as you said, it is aimed at fast-tracking temporary housing for people who have been impacted and displaced by these wildfires. According to the governor's office, here's some of what they say it is going to do. It'll support local governments as they develop plans. It'll streamline construction to develop temporary housing. They say it's going to make it easier to put trailers, houses, temporary houses on damaged properties while people are rebuilding. And it's also going to extend prohibitions on price gouging, particularly for hotels, motels, temporary rentals that people are staying in, right? And this is just the latest executive order that has been signed by the governor. He also signed an executive order to cut some regulations and red tape for those rebuilding burnt structures. He signed another one that was related to students whose schools were destroyed in the fires. All of it steps towards what is going to be most likely a years-long recovery. Gadi.
Ellison Barber, thank you so much. Meanwhile, things are escalating in the Blake Lively-Justin Baldoni saga. Today, Justin sued Blake and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, for defamation, and that suit is over 150 pages. It alleges that the power couple tried to, quote, destroy his career. It is the third lawsuit we're seeing in this ongoing legal battle, and our friend Chloe Malas has more.
Tonight, Justin Baldoni suing His It Ends With Us co-star Blake Lively in the amount of $400 million for defamation and extortion. The civil suit obtained by NBC News, filed in the Southern District of New York on Thursday, also names Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, and her longtime publicist, Leslie Sloan. Among the claims in the suit filed on behalf of Baldoni, his PR team, and his production company Wayfair, that Lively was, quote, determined to make Baldoni the real-life villain in her story, and that she, along with her publicist, falsely accused him of sexual harassment in order to take control of the public narrative that Lively was, quote, tone-deaf during the film's press tour. The suit also claims that Lively made outrageous demands when it came to her character's wardrobe, making production purchase a pair of $5,000 shoes. Another allegation made in Baldoni's suit is that Lively rewrote this key scene in the film with Reynolds, featuring the film's characters on a rooftop, and pressured Baldoni along with one of her mega celebrity friends to accept her version, saying in his suit that Lively deliberately and systematically robbed plaintiffs of their movie. A text message included in that suit identifies that friend as simply Taylor, but the conversation suggests it refers to superstar Taylor Swift, especially with another message implying that the friend's primary gig could be singing, and one of Swift's songs being used in the movie's trailer. Swift did not immediately respond to NBC News' request for comment. In a statement to NBC News, Baldoni's attorney Brian Friedman saying in part, Miss Lively and her team attempted to bulldoze reputations and livelihoods for heinously selfish reasons through their own dangerous manipulation of the media. We know the truth, and now the public does too. Lively, Reynolds, and Sloan have not responded to NBC News' request for comment. But in a previous statement on the dispute, Lively's attorneys telling NBC News in part, quote, Miss Lively's federal litigation involves serious claims of sexual harassment. A classic tactic to distract from allegations of this type of misconduct is to blame the victim and suggest that the offender is actually the victim. This all coming a little over 2 weeks after Lively sued Baldoni and his production company for alleged sexual harassment and retaliation while filming It Ends With Us, and what she claims was a subsequent smear campaign against her for speaking up. In a recent interview with NBC News, Baldoni's lawyer saying there was no smear campaign against Lively.
Was there a coordinated smear campaign to bring down Blake Lively?
100% no. Justin Baldoni, from the get-go, said, I don't want to do anything negative toward her. I don't want to hurt her.
Baldoni's lawsuit also doubling down on claims that he and his PR team recently made against the New York Times in his $250 million libel lawsuit. The newest suit alleging Lively worked for months with the outlet and what they call a behind-the-scenes conspiracy to prepare a false and damaging narrative about Baldoni. One of the text exchanges they reference published by the outlet are between Baldoni's publicist Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel, who are the ones accused in Lively's suit of orchestrating the smear campaign against Lively. In it, Abel writes to Nathan, quote, "You really outdid yourself with this piece," referencing an article with the headline, "Could Blake Lively be canceled?" They claim an upside-down emoji was not published by the Times, which would indicate Abel was being sarcastic, as well as not including the text above and below. The Times saying in a statement to NBC News, "We plan to vigorously defend against the lawsuit," and the Times shared the information that we intended to publish, but that those mentioned chose not to have any conversations with the Times. Chloe Malas, NBC News.
Chloe, thank you. And while it wasn't explicitly stated in the lawsuit today, Variety is reporting that Justin Baldoni's lawyer is telling bigwigs over at Disney and Marvel Studios to hold on to all documents related to Ryan Reynolds' Nice Pool character in the latest Deadpool movie. That's because of allegations that the character was created to mock Baldoni. Part of the argument doesn't come down to a smoking gun, but more like a smoking bun, if you will, which Nice Pool is sporting there in the movie and Baldoni has been known to wear. Take a listen to his lawyer.
Question, it relates to Justin. I mean, anybody that can watch that, the hair bun, the comment about the pregnancy. I mean, it's pretty obvious what's being done.
So do they have a case? NBC's Angela Sinandela joins us now. Angela, so if they sent these litigation letters to Disney execs, how does Nice Pool play into the bigger case against Reynolds and Lively? Are they going to be looking for notes on scripts, text messages between crew members? What are they looking for here?
All of the above. So I think they're looking for two things, and one is the narrative, and second is the evidence. So if you look at big picture, this is really a question of who is the real victim here. So as we heard Chloe report, we had Blake here first suing Baldoni, saying that she'd been sexually harassed. But then Baldoni's countersuit says that not only was he the victim and he harassed, but he also alleges that Blake invented all of the harassment claims, right? So when they are asking, his team is asking Marvel and Disney to preserve all communications surrounding this Nice Pool character, it's for a few reasons. One, to see, was this character actually based on Baldoni, in which case he would use that to attempt to prove that he's being bullied here, he's being harassed, he's being mocked. But then secondly, it has to do with this invention argument of workplace harassment. There's possibility here that in these communications, perhaps it was more creative, this idea that there was fat shaming, etc. That's also what his team is alleging, that all of this was made up. So perhaps that is tied to the character. That's at least what his team is trying to do. Gadi.
And creative stuff aside, doesn't defamation get a little bit weird when it comes to celebrities and public figures? Like, what is the legal bar here?
Yes, so I think after the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, it was almost confusing seeing Johnny Depp win because it is so hard to win any defamation lawsuit if you're a celebrity. And that's because the bar is high. You have to prove that when the other person said the lie, they either knowingly knew that they were lying at the time they shared that lie, or that it was a total reckless disregard for the truth. So this is also here where whatever communications they had around Nice Pool could be relevant, right? Because it is very hard for him to say Blake Lively just made up all of the sexual harassment claims because he doesn't have access to her mind. He doesn't know if she knowingly knew that that was a lie. But if somewhere in these Nice Pool communications there is like, oh, let's make this up. Baldoni didn't really say that, but oh, let's make this up here. I mean, I'm just riffing here, right? These are all just possibilities. Then something like that could be useful to his lawsuit because he has to prove knowledge or reckless disregard. So, yeah, the bar is high, Gadi.
Yeah, and the net being cast is pretty wide. Angela, thanks so much for breaking this down for us.
Thanks, Gadi.
So Israel's cabinet is supposed to vote tomorrow on that ceasefire/hostage deal with Hamas. But in the meantime, there are bombs still coming down in Gaza, making some skeptical that this deal is even going to happen. NBC's Richard Engel has more.
This boy tries to dig himself out after Israel began bombing Gaza again. He was rescued alive amid fears a ceasefire and hostage deal with Hamas could collapse before it even begins. The director of Gaza's field hospitals told NBC News more than 100 Palestinians, including women and children, have been killed since the agreement was announced last night. The Israeli military says it's striking Hamas members and weapons facilities. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today postponed a government meeting expected to ratify the ceasefire, blaming Hamas for adding new conditions. Hamas denies it. The delays and continuing airstrikes are terrifying both Gazans and the families of Israeli hostages.
It's a nightmare sometimes.
In Tel Aviv tonight, I spoke with Eli David. His 24-year-old brother, Aviatar, is not expected to be released in the first phase of the deal, which lasts 6 weeks. Eli says the deal is too complex and could fall apart.
I think it is a very bad deal, but we cannot go against it because it saves lives. Innocent people, which are being held underground inside terror tunnels, maybe tortured, and they will be coming back to the families.
You know that your brother isn't supposed to be part of this first group.
Yeah.
So hopefully when we do see those initial hostages coming out, how are you expecting to feel? Happy, sad, jealous, all of these things?
I will be happy, for sure, but also, for sure, I will be jealous and I will be more and more afraid because if it will continue, 42 days are many days that hostages can be executed, for example.
In Gaza, Zainab Tanbura, who's responsible for 24 displaced children, worries the war will never end. You see, the conditions are horrible. They said ceasefire. It's nonsense. All night, they were bombing here, she says. The agreement would allow in desperately needed humanitarian aid. Living in a tent with little access to food, water, and medicine, she says she can't survive like this for much longer. For now, the deal is still a go. An Israeli official tells us that Israel's cabinet will meet tomorrow, is expected to formally approve the deal to begin on Sunday, which is when we could see the first hostages coming out of Gaza. Gadi?
Richard Engel, thank you. Now let's take a look at some other stories happening around the world tonight. For a couple of days now, we've been telling you about this tense situation in South Africa with illegal miners trapped inside of an abandoned gold mine. Well, today, officials there put the death toll at 87, and they say 247 others were rescued. Police are being accused of initially not trying to help the miners before cutting off their food and supplies. And Bollywood star Saif Ali Khan was stabbed a bunch of times in his own house in a ritzy part of Mumbai today. He's now at a hospital in stable condition. Police say they think this was a burglary attempt. Also today, Pope Francis took a tumble and seems to have hurt his right arm just weeks after another fall that bruised his chin. Now, earlier in a meeting, you could see him there in a sling and using his left hand for handshakes. Vatican says the sling is just a precaution and nothing is broken. And British Prime Minister Keir Starmer was in Ukraine today to sign a 100-year security and trade agreement with the country. Keep in mind, President-elect Trump will be sworn in only 4 days. And then a number of European allies are going to be waiting to see if the U.S. keeps up its support for Ukraine in the war against Russia. Now, don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. Up next, nailing the catch, but not a total success for today's Starship launch, despite this incredible moment. Plus, the big Blue Origin mission that got people excited as well. And then later this hour, the little engine that could. My conversation with the man who created a tool that could help protect homes from the next wildlife outbreak by tapping into swimming pools. Stay tuned.
5, 4, 1. Lift off.
3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
And if you're paying attention, those are two different rockets, and this was a rocket blow-off, the likes of which our species has never seen in history. Two of the richest guys on planet Earth launching the biggest rockets humans have ever built on the exact same day. We are talking SpaceX's Starship and Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket, both taller than Lady Liberty herself, marking major space milestones today for Blue Origin. Today was the first successful liftoff of the New Glenn after years and years of delay. And according to the company, the rocket safely reached orbit, but that reusable booster did not land back on Earth as planned. But SpaceX, their reusable booster, it stuck what seemed like an impossible chopstick catch landing for the second time in history. Watch this.
Attempting to catch the booster at the tower. This would be the second tower catch.
Booster
landing burn. Seeing 13 engines.
Booster now hovering as it aligns with the tower for catch.
Booster coming in. Get ready for that boom, Kate.
Down to 3 engines.
Booster ready for shutdown.
Wild, right? But then we saw a rapid, unscheduled fireworks show over the Caribbean when the latest generation of the Starship, the top part of that rocket, blew up, lighting up the sky like something, I don't know, out of the movie Armageddon. They lost contact with Starship about 8.5 minutes into the flight, and they're still trying to figure out exactly what happened there. And our favorite fellow space nerd, Marissa Parra, joins us now. Marissa, good to see you. I was kind of tempted to call today a billionaire rocket showdown, but then before the SpaceX launch, we saw Musk and Bezos acting like they were best friends on X. Like, how wild has today been?
So wild, Gadi, because when you think about it, take a couple steps back and think about it within the context that we have 2 lunar landers on their way to the moon as we speak. And then earlier today, we also had a spacewalk by Sunita Williams, who was one of the test pilots for the demo flight for Boeing's Starliner, simultaneously on the same day that we saw a test launch for New Glenn. This is Blue Origin. That was early this morning, just around 2 in the morning. And then, of course, within the last couple hours, the 7th test flight for SpaceX Starship. So that is a lot for one day, for 1 week, simultaneously all together. And yes, they are competitors. And now we're seeing New Glenn successfully making it to orbit for the first time. But we did see congratulations exchanged by the 2 billionaires. And I will say, I mean, people look at this and maybe if they don't know all the ins and outs, they might think of them simply as competitors. But ultimately, NASA really wants to make sure that they have more than one company to rely on. I mean, that's just in everyone's best interest here. They can't just be relying on SpaceX to get humans to and from not just the International Space Station, not just the moon, but eventually Mars, as we know, is the greater goal here. So, Gadi, in every single way, wild from start to finish, because, of course, a very eventful last hour or so with Starship's 7th test flight just now.
Yeah, definitely. The rapid, unscheduled assembly. I mean, those 2 space stepbrothers, it almost seems like. So what went right today? Starting with
We'll start
Blue
that.
Origin.
Yeah, we'll start with that. So what went right? They made it to orbit for the very first time. This has been long awaited. They have now entered their hat in the race. I mean, I guess that race has been started for quite some time, but we saw them make it to orbit. That was a big deal. And then, of course, with the 7th test flight for Starship, we'll start with what went right. We saw super heavy rocket booster caught by those chopstick arms, and that is something that they were attempting to do for the second time, Gadi. They did it.
You mean these chopstick arms? Oh.
Yes. Do you want to do a demonstration?
You mean these right here? Yes. You know what this is right here? This is something that I bought.
Will he do it?
Because I was like, you know, Marissa out there in Florida is very close to the space stuff, but maybe I can one-up her if I have a model that I can demonstrate. So this is my attempt to get up to space before you. But yeah, we saw this part caught, right? This part caught by the chopsticks. When are we going to see this part caught by the chopsticks?
That's a great question. Something we are all waiting to find out because, well, as we know, first of all, incredible feat of engineering. Like, for those who are watching at home who don't have really understanding of what they're watching, this has captured international attention for a reason, even beyond the space world. This is not easy, but they're making it look easy. So it is almost easy to miss just how incredible moment that is. And your demonstration as well, Gadi, that was also incredible, worth pointing out. But I think a big question is when we talk about what went right simultaneously with what went wrong. And these are test flights. It's worth reminding everyone the point is to push the envelope. And when you push the envelope, that inevitably will probably come with some failures as you try to test out what could go right, what could go wrong, how far can they take it. Well, what you're looking at is one of the things that did not go according to plan. We do know from SpaceX that they lost the ship. And we have a lot of questions. They have a lot of questions. There's an investigation that's going to happen, of course, into exactly what happened. What you're seeing and what you just saw were images coming out of Turks and Caicos. A lot of questions. We don't have any confirmation, Gadi, at this moment as to where the reentry was happening. We have to, of course, be very careful. But we do know that Elon Musk himself, with SpaceX, has posted images from Turks and Caicos on his own social media account, talking about how this is something that will be learned from. And we are awaiting official confirmation exactly what happened. But all we know is that SpaceX says they lost contact about 8.5 minutes after launch, which is just before or around Starship engine cutoff. So a couple things, Gadi, I just want to end with because it's important to point out there will be investigations. We know the FAA was likely going to investigate this. They just put out a statement saying they are aware of an anomaly, but that they will have an updated statement. The big question is how much money did they cost? Both New Glenn lost the booster upon descent. So how much money was lost in both of these instances? And of course, what exactly went wrong? And will there be a delay with the FAA investigation? That is all to be determined, Gadi.
Right. Yeah, because the cadence that they want to send these up is pretty jaw-dropping. Marissa, I guess I'm going to order one of these on Amazon,
Please.
Ironically, and send it your way.
The irony in all of that.
And then I might post about it on X. Yeah, crazy day we live in. Marissa Parra, thank you. We'll see you up in space soon. And here's some other headlines we're watching tonight. Rudy Giuliani says he's reached a settlement with those Georgia election workers he defamed and owed nearly $150 million to. Now, the tentative deal will allow Giuliani to keep both his New York and Florida homes and his Yankee World Series ring. But both sides say they are satisfied with that deal, except for we don't know exactly how Giuliani is going to fulfill the judgment against him. And now that Marco Rubio looks like he is well on his way to becoming Trump's Secretary of State, the question now becomes who is going to fill his seat in the Senate. Today, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis picked State Attorney General Ashley Moody. She would serve in the Senate until an election is held in 2026. And the FDA says Zyn nicotine pouches can officially start hitting store shelves. For months, if you've seen them, well, they've been sold in this weird legal gray area while waiting on the FDA's official review of its health effects. And that review released today says the popular pouches pose a lower risk of cancer and other serious health conditions compared with cigarettes. And the man known as Mr. Baseball passed away today. Bob Uecker was the voice of the Milwaukee Brewers for more than 50 years. This beloved baseball broadcaster carried on his work until last year, even after he was diagnosed with lung cancer back in 2023. He was 90 years old. And Kilauea is erupting yet again. This is it. You're looking at it live. That is a massive spout of lava flowing in Hawaii right now. People have flocked to Volcanoes National Park on the Big Island to get a closer look. Now, that lava isn't posing any sort of threat to homes or businesses, at least not yet. And coming up, flu cases are skyrocketing across the United States. So how do you protect yourself this winter? That's coming up straight ahead. So stay tuned. Hey, welcome back over on Capitol Hill. Yet another busy day today on confirmation hearings. Not particularly spicy, but kind of run-of-the-mill. Washington, as 3 Trump nominees took questions from senators today. That's news in and of itself. Lee Zeldin, who Trump has picked to lead the EPA, Governor Doug Burgum, who has been tapped to lead the Interior Department, and Scott Bessent, the guy who could be the next Treasury Secretary. Here's some of what today looked like.
So you don't think we should change the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour?
No, sir.
Do you agree with President-elect Trump that climate change is a hoax?
I believe that climate change is real, as I told you.
All right, so joining us now is Julie Sirkin from Capitol Hill. Julie, does it seem like everyone's kind of getting along right now? Like, is it because we got way too used to all the drama, or are these picks given some bipartisan Rubio-esque support?
Maybe it's a little bit of both, Gadi, but I think what you saw today is what happens when you have people who are qualified for the job but don't necessarily align with the other side of the aisle on what their positions would be, which is entirely normal for any administration. I think in the case of Scott Bessent, you definitely have Democrats and Republicans alike who were satisfied with his testimony today. Maybe not on his positions, certainly on Trump's tax cuts, extending those. They might not disagree or see eye to eye, or how he plans to implement those tariffs that Trump keeps talking about. Either way, though, they're open. Here's Senator Warner.
I completely disagree with some of his facts about the characterization of the Trump tax cuts, but I'm open. I also will say this. I thought it was a very powerful comment that he said that he's open to increasing sanctions on Russia, to increase the pressure. I hope he'll make that case strongly to President-elect.
I also think what makes a difference here is that a lot of these guys met one-on-one with senators on both sides of the aisle, Gadi.
Yeah, and who's left? Like, what are the other big names that we could be seeing here? And how soon could it be before we see the actual confirmations?
Yeah, a lot of names that we started off this week in trying to sit before these committees that actually got punted because their FBI files aren't ready or they haven't completed the necessary paperwork. And I think those are some of the more contentious names. For example, tomorrow we're going to hear from Kristi Noem, who is Trump's Department of Homeland Security nominee. She's going to be huge in implementing those border strategy shifts, immigration policy. I don't necessarily think she'll have a problem getting confirmed because only Republicans are needed. But when you look ahead to next week and the week following, somebody like RFK Jr. to lead HHS. He has bipartisan pushback, but could also get bipartisan support. You also have Tulsi Gabbard to be Trump's intelligence chief. Certainly Republicans and Democrats I'm talking to have a lot of questions about her past, about who she's aligned herself with in terms of foreign adversaries. I think the first person who can get confirmed is actually Marco Rubio. That can happen on inauguration night for Secretary of State, of course.
That sounds pretty fast. Julie Sirkin, thank you so much for joining us. And here's something you hate to hear, especially when you're a parent with little ones like us. The bird flu is in overdrive, or the flu is in overdrive. They're also talking about the bird flu, and it literally seems to be almost everywhere. Check this out. If you live in like Montana or Wyoming, you're in the clear. But the rest of us, when it comes to the flu, not so much. NBC medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel joins us now. Dr. Patel, that was a lot of red on that chart. I got my flu shot last week because I'm a procrastinator, but now I'm like freaking out every time my daughter coughs. Is it too late for those of us that waited too long?
No, it is not too late. Gadi, you're in good company. Everyone around me is having some symptoms. It's hard to know what it is right now, but it's not too late to get the flu shot. In fact, we think this flu season could extend even into the April and May months. So not too late. One shot and just get it done. And the immunity, even though it kicks in about 2 weeks after you get the shot, there's still immunity that you get even in the immediate days after the shot.
Yeah, I'll take that immunity. And cold versus flu, like, remind us again what the difference of those symptoms is, because it all just seems like the flu.
It does. It does. And a lot of people describe it like I have the flu, but often the technical actual flu has a lot more kind of sudden onset and more severe symptoms than the cold. So flu often includes a high fever, body aches. If you feel like you had a workout, but you didn't work out, that's probably the flu. Colds have a little bit less of that and more of like the runny, stuffy nose, sore throat with some mild fatigue. So those are kind of the key differences between the two. But often I've seen people who swear they've got just a cold and it turns out they're flu positive. So getting checked can be helpful just to make sure you know, and especially if you're high risk, because we can do antivirals.
I'm the opposite of your patients. I usually have a cold and I'm like, no, this is definitely the flu. I'm like dying. This is very acute. One other thing that we want to talk about, the CDC seems to be sounding the alarm about the bird flu. Like what is going on there?
Yeah, we're seeing an uptick in bird flu in animals, including in dairy cows. So this is just in general, we know there's just more bird flu circulating. I just want to temper set. We have had no human-to-human transmission. We also have had, in almost all of the cases, we can say that they had exposure to some of these animals. So I think the key here, Gadi, is just if you handle, or even in your backyard, if you have animals that seem sick, be very careful. Do not handle them. Call the public health service And if you, of course, have any symptoms, we should be checking to see, and you can do a quick test just to see if it might be the bird flu, not at home, but in a doctor's office and in hospitals.
Yeah, always good advice, no matter what season it is. Dr. Kavita Patel, thanks so much. Great seeing you. And still ahead tonight, how the Getty Villa survived after being surrounded by wildfire flames. We're going to talk about that. But first, you got to see this. Tuesday's commute for a lot of New Yorkers looked a little bit different. The cast of Apple TV's Severance was in a glass box smack dab in the middle of Grand Central Station. Season 2 premieres Friday, so Adam Scott, Patricia Arquette, others, they were just chilling in that famous cubicle. And director and producer Ben Stiller was seen taking pics of the cast like a proud papa. You're doing amazing, sweetie. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back, and here are some of the stories happening out west that we're following right now. A Ventura man has been charged with murdering his girlfriend. Police say that the suspect called them himself. When they got to the Palm Garden Hotel in Thousand Oaks last week, he confessed. That man was also treated for self-inflicted injuries. And Republicans in California are trying to ban transgender students from competing on girls' sports teams. The bill is a challenge to a law that's been on the books since 2013, and it's not expected to go anywhere because of the Democratic supermajority here. And David Lynch, the visionary director known for the TV hit Twin Peaks and movies like The Elephant Man, has passed away. His family announced his death on social media, but they didn't provide any other details. Last year, Lynch announced he had developed chronic lung disease due to years of smoking. He was 78 years old. And you might have seen this video last week when the wildfires were spreading throughout Los Angeles. This fire happened right in front of the historic Getty Villa. There it is right there, which is home to thousands of priceless antiquities. And if you don't know, it was built by oil tycoon J. Paul Getty and opened back in 1974. Well, it does not look like the villa was damaged at all, but there are questions about how that building was able to survive and if it may have gotten priority. Let's bring in Chase Kane to talk a little bit more about this. So, Chase, we've seen so much devastation caused by these fires to houses, to businesses. How did the Getty survive, or the Getty Villa at least, survive all this?
Yeah, I mean, important point. There's the Getty Center and the Getty Villa. At one point, Palisades Fire was threatening the Getty Center. Didn't get nearly as close as it did to the Getty Villa. I think it was a lot of preparation, a little bit of luck. I mean, they built this thing, they renovated this thing to withstand fire. But, I mean, you've been out covering these fires, too, so you know the whims of the wind blows an ember this way, this building catches on fire, the next one doesn't. Of course, also firefighters are out there trying to do what they can in the midst of a chaotic, dangerous situation. So tough to say how much of it was firefighters, how much of it was the wind, how much of it was preparation, but certainly a lot of things came together, and it spared the Getty Villa. And also, should just point in this video, there's a lot of things all sort of packed there together. Right. That's a different villa up on the hillside, right. But the Getty Villa also spared from flames.
And one of the other things that's really interesting, this is one of the places where there is a ton of fire protection, right? Inside of the building, outside of the building, to protect those antiquities. What is in the Getty Villa?
So the Getty Villa, they have ancient Greek, ancient Roman artifacts. Some of them are more than 8,000 years old. I mean, this oil baron, J. Paul Getty, he was a collector. He liked to gather these things, and even built the Getty Villa in the style of ancient Rome. So it has a lot of these more than 8,000-year-old artifacts in there. They have these extensive sprinkler systems, built to stone walls, tile roof. They can even make it airtight and shut it down, basically, so that no air, no ember can get inside. So that's another thing that they had working in their favor last week.
And one thing that we keep hearing is, okay, the Getty Villa was spared or possibly protected while all these other houses are gone. What's the word today?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I was thinking about, is that so many people have lost so much. And so, talking about a museum that has this endowment, like what's the value there? How do we talk about that when people have lost something? Mm-hmm. Can we celebrate this thing that was saved? And actually, I had a chance to talk to the president of the Getty Foundation to get her perspective on that.
Both of our sites, when you go to them, you really feel that you've entered sort of a magical alternative universe, a psychic refuge, an aesthetic refuge. And we want to really offer to a lot of people who are super upset now an opportunity to come and be somewhere peaceful, beautiful, quiet, a place where they can be reflective and think about something, frankly, other than all the awful stuff that's been happening to them over the past week.
And the Getty Foundation also just announced that they're starting a big fund, $12 million to kick it off to support local artists, the local arts community that's been impacted by these fires, so local artists can start applying for those grants on Monday. So a little way they're kind of giving back some of the good fortune that they had last week.
Yeah, so important right now. Chase Kane, thank you. And before we go, it is time for the future of everything, and we're going to introduce you to a man on a mission, the project he hopes will protect homes during the next wave of wildfire. And finally tonight, you know how one of the biggest issues LA firefighters were facing battling these wildfires was a lack of water? Well, what if we could just tap into backyard pools, which there are a lot of here in LA, and then use that water to hook into some sprinklers, which would then spray our houses down while we all evacuate? That's exactly what one high school science teacher has set out to do. Check this out.
At a home in Pasadena, there's a one-man engine-building fire brigade.
There's your firefighter.
Getting parts in by the hour for a contraption that is so in demand. If you stop by, you better be prepared to help.
Another shipment just rolled up.
David Whitman is a high school science teacher on a mission.
What does this come down to for you?
I want to save homes. That's it. I want to save homes. I'm sick of seeing neighborhoods burned to the ground.
Sourcing parts from all over, he's now assembling a system that taps into backyard pools.
So this is the fire engine, this is the firefighter, and the pool is the hydrant.
Yeah, the pools are, that's perfect. I basically put a fire hydrant in your backyard. That's what I do. Everyone's like, oh, it's just a pool. Not anymore, it's not. It's a neighborhood defense system. All those pools. How many times have we seen neighborhoods wiped out, literally obliterated, and there's pool after pool after pool after pool?
He says he's trying to build systems so that people don't have to stay behind to protect their homes.
There's your firefighter right there. You just hired a firefighter on your property. And you can set this to cover a full circle. If it's set like that, then it's going to spin 360, and this will put out some serious water.
That sprays in 360, and the best thing about it is like no one is in danger.
No one's in jeopardy.
Eugene Goling says David's little engine that could saved his home in the Palisades. His son posting their tests before the fire and the aftermath.
If this wasn't soaking for 5 hours, that the fire would have lit up and burnt everything.
As for patents or whether others might copy his product,
if I can educate people on how to make these things themselves, great.
For now, the teacher in him, happy to show the world what a simple solution can do.
I call it evacuating in style. At least you tried.
A high school science teacher, he took a sub yesterday to build more of those pumps, and he thanked his substitute teacher for stepping in for him. Incredible. Little engine that could. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gadi Schwartz. We'll see you here tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.